So I'm making a video on how I made these push pads. And I had this big long 5 minute explanation on what was going on, and it's 5 minutes of me babbling. So let's not listen to me babbling about ridiculous crap. I'm gonna make some homemade push pads. I like them better than the store bought. It's kind of ridiculous. They're made out of cherry and homemade oak plywood, which you don't have to worry about. You can use any old thing. But let's just get into it. Let's not listen to me babble. So let's get to it. So this is just homemade plywood. I kind of just cut on the bandsaw and then glued together. It wasn't really great. Kind of a test. So it kind of curled and it's not flat and blah blah blah. So I'm passing it over the jointer, and when I'm done with that, I'll put it through the planer to get some nice flat parallel surfaces. So now that I got it all nice and flat, I gotta figure out about how big I'm gonna make it, and I'm just gonna, take one of the existing ones and kind of make it about that long, because that's how long it's gonna be. So I'm taking it over to the miter box and just gonna basically cut it in half and then trim it down to size. Welcome to the old Craftsman stupid table saw, which is why I don't like to change the blade often. So yeah, as you can hear, I'm not the biggest fan of this part of the Craftsman table saws because, well, they don't have a locking arbor, so you have to use a board to lock the blade, which is a little crazy, but yeah, it's gonna be worth it because there we have this beautiful CMT dado blade. I've used a lot of dado blades in my life, and this is by far the nicest one I've ever used. And not because it cuts any better, but because of this locking plate that it comes with. These old saws, sometimes the blades will drop down into the threads of the arbor, and you'll actually not get a flat surface where that locks in and it doesn't happen. So I'm using an old zero clearance and making it from my dado. And what I'm going to do here is a little kind of might not be the smartest thing I've ever done in my life, but I want to put an angle on the handle. So what I'm going to do is pad the actual piece up. So when I cut with the dado, it's at a slight angle. And that way I have the thickness of the material, but there's an angle in the cut. You can angle the blade, but I highly don't recommend angling a dado blade in a table saw. You can do it, but it's probably not the safest thing. Also, with these old, again, Craftsman table saws, angling the blade is not the greatest thing because the actual blade is tilted by just a thin piece of sheet metal on the body, and they just don't. They're not the most reliable angle setting system in the world. Anyway, we're pushing it through and cutting the dado into the base. And as you can see, as I flip it over, all we have to do is pop that piece off that was hot glued on and do the next one. Move on. Now I'm going to choose a piece of scrap for the handles. This is all scrap. Of course, right out in front is this nice chunk of cherry. It has some cracks in the other end. That's why you can see I used it on the router, or excuse me, on the CNC. But the bottom half of that is still a pretty decent chunk. I think I can make the handles out of it. So we'll cut it to about the right length. And then we'll take it over to the bandsaw and resaw it in half to make two handles out of the one piece. It's a little thick anyways, and that's the thickness I needed, I guess. I got real lucky because they're almost perfect. So now that I have the two blanks for the handles, I'm just gonna trace the existing ones because believe it or not, the one thing I do like about these handles is their basic shape on these cheapo plastic ones. And I'm actually gonna try and do both because I like this one I'm tracing now, and I also and this one also. So I will do them both because I like them both, you know, for handles. So yeah, actually I want to kind of try both types of handle, and so I'm gonna make, you know, both types of handle. And after a little bit of cleanup, I'm gonna bring it over to the drill press. At the drill press, I'm gonna punch a few holes with this Forstner bit to make it a little easier to cut out the inside shape of this handle I'm in the process of making. And for some reason, I'm screwing with the camera over there instead of, actually drilling a hole. But yeah, let's drill some holes. And some more holes. And let's drill some more holes. And a few more holes. Let's drill a bunch of holes. Let's just drill a bunch of holes to make it easier to cut these handles. So now that I've got these holes drilled, a lot of holes drilled. Actually, it wasn't that many holes drilled. It's a lot of holes drilled. Anyway, I can now clamp them down to the bench, which is probably not the best way to do it, but it's what I got available to me right now. And take a jigsaw and roughly cut it close to my little lines I've drawn using, yeah, this thing, a jigsaw, which I'm not set up well with. But I'll get it done. And believe it or not, I don't cut my bench, which is kind of amazing watching the video back that I didn't chop into my bench at all doing it this way. Anyway, yeah, I jigsaw out all the inner parts of the handle. And when I'm done with the jigsaw, you cutting out the inners, I bring it over to the bandsaw to cut out the outer shape because, oh my god, is it easier on a bandsaw than it is on a jigsaw? Yeah, a lot easier. So just like with the jigsaw on the inside, I'm using the bandsaw on the outside, and you cut just, a little over the line so you're not, or under the line, depending on how you look at it. I don't know, over the line, under the line. Anyways, you leave the line. That way you can come back and sand it down to the line and have a nice accurate finish. So when I get done cutting these on the bandsaw, I'll take them over to the sander. Now I have this nice little Win spindle slash belt sander I bought. I actually bought it as a trial, thinking I'd get the better, like the rigid or one of the higher end, units. And I bought this to see if I would actually use it. And to be honest, I love this thing. I don't use it a lot, but I do use it, and when I do use it, it's just awesome. It really is. It works just beautifully. It's simple. It's not the fanciest thing in the world, but it gets the job done. So using my little spindle sander here, I will sand out the inside of the handle, and then when I get all the inside faces pretty smooth and close to the line, I'll flip it around and do it to the outside section of the handle that's curved. I'll actually use the belt sander on that flat spot on the bottom. But the rest of it, I'll use the spindle sander on, after cleaning up the sawdust from the last round. So finalize the outer edge with the spindle sander, and I switched over to the belt oscillating sander, and now I'm sanding down the faces. Now, not only am I smoothing out the face, but I'm also making it fit into the dado I had cut in the bottom. I made these a little bit wider so I could do just this. I could sand it down, not have to worry about it becoming loose, get a nice smooth finish. But then after sanding, I could fit it into the groove and it'll be a nice snug fit. Now, right now it's still a little bit too big, so I'll bring it back to the sander. I'm using my old sanding pad, so hold it up there nice and flat. I'm gonna smooth out the bottom a little bit, and I'm gonna roll the edge a little. It just gets rid of some of the burrs and tear out and fray from the oak or cherry, excuse me, and do a final fitting and get it ready for glue up. And as you can see, it's a nice, snug, tight fit. And now I'm ready for glue up. So after a final dry fit, which I actually have it a little too tight. As we all know, you want a snug fit, but it's a little too snug, and when you add the glue to it, the wood swells and ends up being a little too tight. But I managed with clamping and stuff, as I'll show you. But here I am, smear a little glue in there, use my finger to spread it out a little bit, because, you know, that's your best glue distribution system, your finger. And put the handle into the slot. Now again, this is a little too tight because, you know, the glue swells, so I actually had to take out a mallet, rubber mallet, and kind of pound it in there. And then even after that, I had to put a clamp to it and really, really push it down into the groove. And after a little working and clamping and pushing, put a couple clamps on it. It's a little difficult with the handle shape, but I got it. Cleaned it up a little bit, and now it's time to set it aside and let it dry. So after taking them out of the clamps the next day, nice and sunny out, I decided the pads were a little bit longer than the handle. I didn't like it. So I decided to trim the pads down, pad area, pad face, pad piece, trim the pads down to the handle length, just because I thought it would look a little bit nicer. Really wasn't important, but you know, we don't always do things that are important. We do things because we want to do them. So after a little more sanding and final, you know, cleanup and everything, I brought them over and took out the roll of, I think this is neoprene. It's kind of sticky stuff. I'll leave a link to it. It's not an affiliate link, but I'll leave a link somewhere in the information window. So you take the neoprene and I'll measure it out and I'll cut it to approximately the size I want to make the pads. And it's not easy stuff to cut. I've tried knives, I've tried everything. I'm using kitchen shears here. This is about the best thing I've found, and it's still not great, but they're shop tools. Who cares? So after trimming it all down and putting everything away and setting up, I put some pieces down, get everything ready. It's time for contact cement. Now again, I'm using the old-fashioned well-bond cheap stuff. It's about the best thing I found. I've tried all kinds of different cements and stuff, and for this particular system, good old-fashioned contact cement. Just brush it on both pieces, let it dry, and then stick it together. Works the best. So after the contact cement's dry, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes I think it usually takes. You gotta make sure it's not really wet to the touch anymore. It's pretty much dry. All you have to do is take the two pieces and stick them together. You want to make sure there's good and tight bonding between the two pieces. I go back and just keep pressing on it just to make sure there's no air bubbles or anything, you know, keeping it from being fully in contact. But yeah, it's pretty easy. And then all you do is trim it up. And then once all trimmed up, all there is to do is give them a shot. I did add a little finish to them. I don't even remember. I think I just put beeswax and mineral oil cutting board wax on them just to, you know, preserve them a little bit. Don't really need much. And yeah, let's give them a shot on the jointer with this big, kind of almost too long board from my joiner. Yeah, let's try that. So as you can see, they are working rather well. Pretty happy with them at this point. I even went back and grabbed some more boards and ran them through. I have a bunch of rough walnut. And I was having fun using my new push pads. So I kind of did rough surfacing on some rough black walnut I had laying around. Because why not? I want to use my new push pads. These are pretty nice. So homemade push pads. These are awesome. Way better than these. They're not really better. They're just better because I like building them. These are fine. They work great. I resurfaced them. They're fine. These are better because I made them and it was fun. So there. Ugh. Make your own push pads. Homemade out of scraps.